Okay, so now let's actually write a little guessing game, and let's talk about the guessing game. By the way, it's always hit and miss when I ask this one, but who likes to play games? Put a thumbs up here if you like playing games. I'm just curious. Yeah, a lot of thumbs up. I've asked that before, and I've got 12 thumbs up, 13. I've asked that before in other classes, and sometimes you get students who like, no, I don't play games, and that's okay. What I like to tell people who don't play games, but when I do gaming examples, is that A, games are actually harder to write than business software. So if you can write a game, you can write business software. And B, don't think of it as a game, think of it as a real life simulation. So instead of creating a game world, you're creating a virtual world simulation that just happens to have fake physics. That's what I like to say if you don't like games. But in this case, we're going to use this guessing game to do something with while loops here. And also we're going to use randomness. And randomness is a big thing in games because otherwise the games would never be interesting because they would always be the same. So we're going to have a secret passcode. So you're going to have a secret passcode. The computer is going to say, I have a secret, you have to figure it out. And you're going to have to try and guess what the passcode is. And the user is going to get 3 attempts at the passcode. And oh, by the way, while you guys are doing that last thing, someone asked, how do you know what the functions are or what the parameters, arguments are? I just did a quick Google search, and you can see the first one says docs.python.org. That's the official documentation of modules that are included in Python. So factorial was the one that I was playing with. You can see that it takes a single x and returns as an integer. So this is the answer is you go and check the official documentation at python.org. If you don't know, if it's an official Python thing. Okay, so what I wanted to show you, this right here is the list of the most common passwords used on the internet. And if any of these passwords show up on anything you use, please change your password because these are the first ones that are hacked. This is the most common passwords that people have used in the last 10 years or so. And you should never do it because they're easily predicted because they've been used. And at this point, people know about them. But we're going to steal some of these passwords and we're going to use them in our game. And I actually have a few already. And let me open up my file. And actually the code for this is already in the lecture folder, but it's just has a single line of code. It's just creating a list with 6 of those passwords, right? We have 6 commonly used passwords we're going to put in our game. And the computer is going to pick one of these passwords. And then it's going to ask the user to figure out which one the computer picked. So our job is then going to be, we have to make the computer grab one of these numbers or one of these passwords. And then we have to ask the user repeatedly, what did they guess? What did you guess? What did you guess? And then we have to check to see if they're right. And we're only giving them 3 attempts. And so after 3 attempts, we just say, hey, you lose. And so we're going to see if you can correctly guess and win the game. And to start with, we don't want to keep these passcodes a secret. We want them to guess the passcodes. We have to tell the user what the passcodes are. So we're just going to print them out. By the way, is this going to work? Let me know if this works. Can I print out a list? Can I concatenate a list to I mean, we know we could print a list out, but can we concatenate it to a string? Well, let's run it. Yeah, I got a no there. You cannot concatenate a string with a list. However, Python does have the ability to convert things to strings, including the ability to convert a list to a string. We just have to do a type conversion from list to string. We do that type conversion, and now it's printing out the list for us. kind of how we expected to see it too. So that's actually a nice little feature there that we can convert a list to a string so we can print that out. So that's it. We have to do that conversion. And now we want to kind of prompt the user with some instructions. And we're going to use a sentient, pretend we're a thinking computer. I'm thinking of a passcode. Can you guess it in 3 attempts? I'm always wary of a computer that talks about itself in first person, but let's just add that anyway. Store number of guesses, right? We have to know how many guesses the user is going to get because we're going to be checking that. We're going to give them 3 guesses. We're going to check it because we want to be able to, we want to know after 3 guesses or however many guesses we give them at this point 3 that, hey, no, that's it. You only get 3 guesses, you lose. Okay. So now we have to pick a passcode. In order to pick a passcode, I don't want to just pick one all the time. I actually want to randomly pick one. So I need to import random. And when we're importing modules, we pretty much always stick it at the top. It's kind of classic Python and any other programming language is that we put the import statements at the top of the file so that it just doesn't get in the way of anything else. And it's available in the entire file. So now we just have to generate a random number. And to do that, we're going to, really we want one of these, but this is a list. It's not going to generate one of these. What it's going to generate is an integer. But that integer we can say is going to be an index into that list. And currently my list has 6 things. So I could put 5 right there and it'd be okay. But what if I want to change my list later? Well, we should get the length of the list and subtract 1. Remember, we just kind of did that. We did that thing there where we didn't want to, you don't want to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't want to go to 6 and the length is 6. We want maximum is going to be 6 minus 1, so 5. So we're going to pick a number between 0 and 5. That's going to be our index. And so the secret word that we're going to use is going to be the passcode at that index. That's the passcode the user's trying to get. So for example, if this randomly generates 2, the passcode that's going to be stored is password. That's going to be our secret word. And now we just need to get input from the user, enter your guess. And then after they guess, we're going to let me be consistent here. Subtract 1 from the number of guesses. So now I've guessed once, I'm going to decrease by 1. And then I'll have 2 guesses left. And we can do that 3 times, right? And so if we can do this multiple times, that means we should do this in a loop. And so we need to think about what's going to be our condition for us to continue to loop. Well, first, is their guess equal to the secret word? Did they guess it correctly? Now, remember, I'm looping as long as they have the wrong answer. So we want this to be true in order to continue looping. So if they don't guess it correctly, we keep looping. Also, if they run out of guesses, we need to stop. And so we say the number of guesses is greater than 0. So if they didn't guess it correctly and they still have more guesses, just keep going. Right? That's what we're saying. And so let's think about what happened if they guessed wrong on the first one. Maybe. Oh, yeah, sorry, I picked the random one. Random. Thank you. Good catch. So let's say they guess incorrectly on the first time. Starts with 3. They guess something wrong. This turns to true. And this turns to true because 3 is greater than 0 and they guessed something wrong. So this is going to loop and it's going to do stuff. So when they guess wrong, we tell them so. So wrong guess. number of guesses remaining, just so they know how many guesses they have left. And we just concatenate that with the number of guesses. And we print that out. And so now they'll know how many guesses they have remaining. Wrong guess, number of guesses remaining. Okay. And then we're just going to take these two lines and repeat them. After we tell them they're wrong, we make them do it again. Eventually, they're either going to guess it right on the second try, in which case we'll end, or but they get it wrong, then they'll do another guess until eventually they run out of guesses. But let's say they get it right. If they get it right, this is going to be false and the whole loop will end. If they get it wrong and we keep going, eventually this is going to go to 0, and then this will cause the loop to end. So eventually the loop will end because they either guess correctly or they'll run out of guesses. And so eventually this loop ends. And when it does, we just have to confirm if they guessed correctly. And so did we actually guess the secret word? And so we check. And if you did, we just congratulate them. And if they didn't, we give them a frowny face because sometimes it's nice to mock the users. And so you say you won or you lost, depending upon, but only if they guessed it do we say you won. If they didn't, they ran out of guesses, then they'll say you lost. And then finally, if they lost, we should just share the secret word with them. And we might as well just share the secret word with them even if they won. So we're just going to share it if they won. So we check to see if they actually guessed correctly. So if they did on the second try, it will drop into here and print you won and then print the secret word. Or if they kept guessing it wrong, eventually this goes to 0. This is false, and then we'll say you lost. So now we've handled that case. And so let's try it. And by the way, every time we run this, we'll most likely get a different secret word. But that's something we'll have to check. We'll actually have to run it multiple times to test it. So let's run it and see how our game works. Can you guess it in 3 attempts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wrong. And notice I deducted my guesses. I have 2 guesses. Let's just go down the list to QWERTY. Hey, I guessed it. That was fun. Said I won and it printed out QWERTY. Okay, well, let's run it again. Same thing. However, now I want to actually lose the game. And the best way to do that is to guess the wrong thing same time. It went to 0, so I didn't guess it correctly. Now I lost. And it still printed out. And QWERTY was actually the answer again. Let's make sure it's not giving me QWERTY all the time. All right, good. What about dragon? Nope. How about password? Nope. It was I almost picked that one. And I talked myself out of it and went to password. So it does kind of work. We can just keep playing it. I mean, I could sit here and play all day. I don't think you guys really wanted to watch me play a game all day. But the point is, hey, I found it on the last try. And so it works. We guessed it correctly. So this is just a very simple game that uses randomness, random numbers, and while loops. And we'll come back and think about how to clean this up a little bit later. But for now, that's just an example of writing a while loop and using randomness.